Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, August 7th, 2020. I am Andrew Hansen, only Shane. And Shane, it's getting crazy here. It's a wild bubble down in Florida. It's Michael Porter Jr.'s world, and we're all just living in it.
Yeah, it was first it was TJ Warren was he was playing like MJ about every night, and then all of a sudden Michael Porter comes out of nowhere and just tearing it up down there. And it was pretty impressive that you kind of predicted it the day he had his big breakout game, when he put up, what was it, 37 points. You'd predicted that he did look good and you liked him, and you might have had a debate with someone about it.
I don't know who you're
Yeah,
talking about. Who could that have been?
yeah, yeah. So that was a good call out there, and it was like, man, we just need to lock him in every night now. Who would have thought Michael Porter Jr. was going to be 60-70% owned chalk there, and then and also for yesterday's games, you had guys like James Harden and Damian Lillard just goes on an absolute tear. So it's exciting watching these guys go, and you kind of worried about the Lakers a little bit there. Like, I know LeBron was out, but they just look flat. I've watched their last two games, and AD doesn't look really that good, and LeBron looks kind of flat. And like, who else do they have if they're not just relying on those guys? So you're kind of worried about the Lakers a little bit to see if are they going to be able to flip the switch when it gets to playoff time. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. It's fun to see some of these young guys break out, though. So it's really fun to watch it right now.
Yeah, there's been some terrific individual performances, but interesting dynamic how things have kind of changed. A lot of the stars were excellent in the first game or two, and now we've sort of hit that lull in the middle of the bubble here where we're getting to see a lot of these younger players get more minutes, and we're seeing teams rest guys like LeBron tonight. And so more than ever, it's really important that you dig in and follow the news with us, uh, jump in as a member. It's a great time to jump in as a member because we don't use optimizers at DFS Coach Talk. We're not against them, but the way we gain our edge is by using the eye test, watching all the games, and so we've been doing that. And we know when there's a late swap and there's a new player coming into the mix, we know right away, how we want to react. I mean, Tyler Hero was locked in for us as a highlighted core play on DraftKings, and he smashed today. We saw that Dragic was out, Butler was out, and so it was kind of a no-brainer. Coach, right when he got that news, he called me and said we got to get Hero in, and so that's how we do it here. We use all of our years of experience watching the game, using the eye test, obviously following the stats as well, to make our pivots and make our final decisions. So if you're new to the program, what you can do as a member with us is you get the full FanDuel lineup for every sport. Golf's off to a great start today. On DraftKings, we had Brooks Koepka, Gary Woodland, and Shane Lowry highlighted. Those were our three core plays on DraftKings, and they shot 4 under, 3 under, and 2 under respectively. So awesome start in golf. And so, like I said, you get the full FanDuel lineup in every sport. Right now, obviously, we're just covering basketball, baseball, and golf, waiting for football. Shane and I are going to lead the charge on that come September. So that's the other thing. Nice thing with our membership is one payment gets you coverage for all the sports. So you get the lineup on FanDuel, the coach's clipboard on DraftKings. So go to dfscoachtalk.com and pick up our weekly, monthly, or annual membership, and then you'll get right into our Discord for lineups, lineup advice, player advice, and commentary interaction with us throughout the day. We're always answering members' questions and talking about different lineups and pivots. So certainly invite everybody to jump in now. Let's see, Shane, what do we have here today? We have the next NBA slate. It's the Friday, August 7th slate. It's 6 games will be played. We're just going to talk about the main slate, the 5-game slate on DraftKings and FanDuel, 4 o'clock Eastern. There is an early game. It's Utah against San Antonio. So if you want some advice on a showdown slate, jump in as a member. Let us know. We'll be happy to do that. It's going to be an interesting one with all those guys out for Utah: Conley, Mitchell, O'Neal, Gobert. Uh, it's going to be wild. So um, definitely tune in with us if you'd like on that. But otherwise, we're just going to jump into the main slate here. And I want to start by thanking our sponsors, mybookie.ag. Terrific promotional offer. Like I did last time, I'm not even going to give you the details. Just go to our website. It involves a match. It involves a free play. It's terrific. You don't want to miss it. So go to our website to get that offer and use the promo code CoachTalk. And while you're there, look at the terrific offer from TVG. That's where the world watches and wagers on horse racing. $300 risk-free bet on our website. So highly recommend that if you're into horse racing. Even if you're not, give it a shot. It is a risk-free bet. So thank you to our sponsors for providing this podcast in front of the paywall. We do this 7 days a week on the NBA. We do a weekly golf show, and we'll have football podcasts 3 to 4 times per week this fall. We'll have you ready for every slate. So first game on the docket is Oklahoma City against Memphis. MyBookie.ag line is Oklahoma City minus 3.5, over under of 224. Big news here is that Schroeder is still out for OKC, and Triple J is out for Memphis with the knee injury. So big shift in usage on both sides of the ball here, Shane. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, for OKC, Chris Paul has been playing great, but the issue is he's priced up quite a bit. He's 7,800 FanDuel, 8,100 DK, and Chris Paul is kind of like a cash game play because he's a little limited on his ceiling, but he's been playing great. So he's kind of a little more, probably a better real world basketball player than a fantasy basketball player at this point. I mean, I watched him the other night. He was excellent out there, the ultimate floor general and really good. So I don't think I'm going to be getting up to that price point for Chris Paul, but I do want to mention that he's looking really good. So he's a good play. But I am interested in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because he can play some point guard and play off guard. And Memphis isn't really good at guarding either position. And this is going to be a pace-up game for them. And I think that plays into his skill set of kind of being a slasher. He can still shoot on the perimeter. He can get some defensive stats. So I really like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's 7,500 on FanDuel, and he's a pretty reasonable price on DraftKings at 6,800. So I do like him as having upside and having a pace-up game and playing, the 1 and 2 guard, being able to play both positions and just get a lot of minutes and a lot of usage here. So he's one guy I'm looking at there. And then over on the Memphis side, this might be a game where I don't play Ja Morant as much as I love Ja Morant. I like his aggressiveness and I like what he's been doing. You typically don't want to target Chris Paul and company here with OKC. They're a tough defensive game and it's kind of a pace down game for them. But those big guys in there, like Joe Valanciunas is good. He's solid and he's a double machine. If he gets solid minutes, he's 7,500 on FanDuel, 7,300 on DK. We'll see how Steven Adams looks. He got a little bit roughed up last game as well and went to the locker room. He came back out and he was okay, but we'll see how that matchup looks. And then Brandon Clark is the other guy that's filling in for Jaren Jackson Jr. He's going to get more usage, and he didn't put up a monster game last game, even though a lot of people played him. So that recency bias might actually give him lower ownership. So if you want to capitalize on Brandon Clark getting more usage and more playing time here and getting all those different, he can get a lot of different statistics, rebounds, blocks, steals. He's 5,900 on FanDuel, and he's really affordable on DK at 4,900. So I think Brandon Clark is a good play with the recency bias of him being highly owned last game and not really producing that much. That could probably steer a lot of people away from him. He kind of burned some people. So that might help lower his ownership if he can have his ceiling game and get up there, which I think he could here, even though OKC is pretty tough. So that's kind of the main guys I'm looking at here. Not targeting this game a lot, but there's definitely a couple good plays here.
Yeah, I'm right with you. Brandon Clark, certainly attractive to me on DraftKings. I agree with Triple J out. I really want to have either Clark or Joe Val in my lineup, or at least most of my lineups. Clark got 27 minutes the last game, and that's the key for me. If he gets 27 to 30 minutes, he hustles so well, rebounding on both ends, putbacks, lobs. So I hope, like you said, that people are a little bit disappointed and they don't play him as much, and they think, oh well, OKC's a tough defense, but I just think at 4.9 on DraftKings, that's really going to be hard to pass up. Joval, a little bit easier to pass up with that price tag. I do like a center here later in the slate in that same price range, but I think he's worth getting some exposure to if you're playing multiple lineups. I'm not going to play Jaw. He's not been good against OKC. He has been good recently, but I like some other guards better. And same thing on the OKC side. I like Shea's price. He's been good against Memphis this year, and now with Schroeder out, he's going to have even more of an opportunity. If you really need a value play from this game, you could look at Dort at 3.5, but there is going to be some value opening up later. So I don't think you need to go there. He did get 6-7x return here recently, though. So he's one of those guys that's getting more and more run, more and more confidence. So not the worst play, but we'll see how the value plays later in the slate stack up against him.
Yeah.
All right, game two. This one should be a little bit more explosive in terms of scoring than that first game with a 224 total. Final lines are not out yet, and this is Sacramento against Brooklyn. Sacramento coming off a back-to-back big victory over the Pelicans, 140 to 125. De'Aaron Fox and Bogdan Bogdanovic both went off. So they get a back-to-back situation here against Brooklyn with a bunch of question marks. They've really been shuffling their lineup, trying to avoid playing everybody. But there's only so many guys left. So as of right now, we've got Jamal Crawford out with the hamstring. We've got Joe Harris questionable with the left groin, and Jarrett Allen questionable with the ankle. So Harris and Allen, those are the big, big question marks that are going to be huge on this slate. We've seen how much things can change when Brooklyn shuffles their lineup and the value opens up depending on which site you're playing, because the prices have been very different from site to site. Shane, we talked about that recently before the Milwaukee game. So with those question marks in mind, how do you sort this one out for us?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to keep an eye on the Jarrett Allen, Joe Harris news. Those guys have been playing good when they're in there, but Brooklyn doesn't seem to really want to play all their starters because I don't know that they really have serious injuries. They look just fine when they played the other night. So I keep joking. The Brooklyn guys, they keep tripping on the sidewalk.
Right.
They scrape their knee on the sidewalk. Walking around Disneyland there, or Disney World or whatever.
Right.
So I think that we probably will get news. I'm guessing that they're going to be out, Jarrett Allen and Joe Harris. Why would they put them as questionable? It seems like they want to just put them as questionable and then they're out. But obviously, we got to wait for confirmation. As of right now, we don't have that confirmation. But yeah, it's going to be interesting if Jarrett Allen's out again. Do we take a look at Kurucs again? He's 3,600. You get him near minimal price, and the guy's very talented. In minimal minutes last game, he looked good. So if he gets up there in the mid 20s minutes to high 20s, I think he's a great play again. He does a little bit of everything. He can shoot threes, he can drive, he can get defensive stats. So I look Kurucs if Jarrett Allen and Joe Harris are out again. And then if LeVert is playing, I mean, it's going to be the one-man show there. He's going to be the star for them. So it's going to be really hard not to play LeVert if we feel like he's going to play and get full-time minutes here. And Sacramento's not really like that much of an imposing matchup here. They're decent, but they're not that much of imposing, and they're coming off that fast-paced back-to-back, game that was pretty intense there. So yeah, definitely got to fire up LeVert here. 7,900 on FanDuel, I'm willing to pay that, and 7,100 on DK. hey, DK actually priced him less than FanDuel, so that's good, right? So 7,100 there. So yeah, we'll be looking at LeVert for sure here. And then on the Sacramento side, De'Aaron Fox has just been on a tear, and he may be worth paying up for as well here. I don't know who's going to be able to guard him in Brooklyn. I mean, LeVert's pretty good on defense, but they just have a bunch of backup guys that might be playing here. So Fox could kind of have his way with them. And I'm not too worried about Fox. I feel like he's in great condition to be able to handle the back-to-back and still get minutes. So he's 8,000 on FanDuel, 7,600 on DK. Bogdanovich is going to be really, I think, pretty highly owned because he's coming off that monster game from yesterday, and he's really cheap. He's 4,900 on FanDuel and 5,100 on DK. So I think he's highly owned, but I feel like he could be in a letdown spot here coming off that really big game, and that he just goes out and has an average game. That's kind of his MO. But you never know unless he's been hanging out with Michael Porter Jr. I'm a little nervous about him going back to back here. Yeah. And then the other guy I kind of like is a little bit of a sleeper here is Rashaan Holmes. He's center on DK at 4,900, and he's power forward on FanDuel at 5,500. I feel like Holmes can get in the mix there and exploit the weakness of Brooklyn down low in terms of rebounds. He's the type of guy that can rack up some blocks and steals, and if he gets involved and actually gets a little bit of scoring down low too, I feel like they can attack down low there. So I like Rashaan Holmes because he hasn't really done much lately, but I feel like he's due for a good game and he's pretty affordable. So that's kind of what I'm looking at in this game so far.
Yeah, I love your breakdowns there on both sides. It's an if game with Brooklyn, and it's one of those logical, mathematical theorems, the if then. So
Yeah.
if Allen is out, then you play Kurucs. I mean, for me, it's a slam dunk at 3,900 on DraftKings, and I think you said 3,600 on FanDuel, right? Just
Yeah.
way too cheap for the amount of minutes he's going to get. Sacramento's 20th defensively, wide open game, fits him perfectly. So I'll pair him with LeVert in every lineup and be excited about it. On the Sacramento side, Fox, I think I agree. I think we can have faith in his youth, his energy, his stamina. So I think he's a strong play, a little pricey at 7.6, but I think he's worth investing in. Not a lock and load like LeVert, but strong play. Bogdanovich, I will play him again. Not every lineup, just in case. He can be boom or bust. He's not the most consistent guy. I mean, he's no Michael Porter Jr. yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we need a few more games out of him before we can put him in that category. But
Yeah.
and I like your Holmes play. I feel like there's a chance he'll go a little bit underlooked on DraftKings here because we've got, Embiid. If folks want to pay up for Embiid, who's only center eligible, we've got Thomas Bryant. We already mentioned Joe Val. So he might get lost in the shuffle a little bit, and he really hasn't been that productive or reliable so far in the bubble. He's gotten in foul trouble. He hasn't taken a ton of shots. So this might be one of those plays where you like to talk about, Shane, where you get the guy on the breakout night.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no secret he's going against Brooklyn here, and they're already depleted in a major way, in the front line. So it's not like it's some crazy off the wall play.
Yeah.
But I'm just, again, with position eligibility on DraftKings, I think he might go a little bit lesser owned than you might think. So he's worth considering. Bielitsa's worth considering. So that this is a game, again, that you do want some exposure to. We don't have the final lines yet, but I think it'll be the second highest total on the slate. So certainly we'll have a bunch of exposure here.
Yeah, interesting that the game before on August 4th against Dallas, Bogdanovich was 1 for 15 shooting. And then he came out, yesterday against New Orleans on fire, 6 for 9 from 3-pointers, 13 out of 20. So, and then, the 2 games before that, he was only 4 for 13. So which Bogdanovich are you going to get? On fire Exactly. Bogdanovich or or shooting slump Bogdanovich. I mean,
Right.
if you believe in trend, then you play him. But I don't know if I can trust him. But he certainly is going to be in play. But it's interesting correlation here is that if Jarrett Allen is out, you could probably fire up Kurucs if you're looking for a value guy that we think does have a little bit of upside. And then the question is, with their weakness down low, they don't have Jarrett Allen protecting the rim or anything. Is Rashaan Holmes even a better value play as well, under the radar guy, because he can just eat down low, get a ton of rebounds, blocks, and all those stats. So I think those are all things that are kind of correlating here in this game. So, and it should be a fairly fast-paced game, and if it's anything, if Sacramento wants to play like they did against New Orleans and Brooklyn's already fast-paced, then, hey, this could be a good fantasy game. So,
Exactly.
So we're going to be keeping a close eye on this one as we get into the morning hours here.
Right on.
Yep.
All right. Game 3 on this slate, this 5-gamer, is a 6:30 Eastern tip-off between Orlando and Philly. And this one could get a little bit ugly. Line's not out yet because of the injury news here. We've got Aaron Gordon doubtful with a hamstring. Shane and I both think that he's going to be out because Orlando's basically locked into the 8th seed. I mean, they're in the playoffs. We'll see if they finish 7 or 8, but no real reason to risk Aaron Gordon's long-term health here. They already had the devastating injury this week to Isaac, so we both expect him to be out. Michael Carter-Williams is questionable. So bottom line is we're going to have some potential value plays on Orlando. Here's what I'm thinking. Ennis has been starting, and he's 3.7 on DraftKings. I think he's going to get a fair amount of ownership as a value play. He took 12 shots last time out. He was 0 for 6 on threes, but that was with Gordon in there. So he's one guy that might get some looks. He did have 20 fantasy points in the last game. And then the other guys, I'm not sure who's going to start. That's one thing we'll take a look at here with the news. It could be Wes Iwundo at minimum price. Could be Gary Clark at minimum price. I mean, Orlando, the thing with them is they have been playing balanced minutes, but they're losing guys left and right, in that small forward, power forward range. So there's going to be some opportunity there and some decisions that will have to be made on potential value plays. So stick with us throughout the day on that. Philly's side, in terms of the injuries, Ben Simmons out with the kneecap injury. So could be some, increased value here for Shake Milton, Tobias Harris. New starter, we don't know who that might be. Could be Korkmaz, could be Thibault. So potential value plays on both sides here, Shane, just because of injuries. Anybody that you're excited about in this game?
I could definitely take a look at Evan Fournier because, you got, Isaacs is out with the bad injury. Aaron Gordon is, big man, but he's one of their primary scorers. So these shots got to go somewhere. The usage and the production's got to go somewhere. So I like Evan Fournier. He is the type of guy that's experienced that could have a breakout game, even though he hasn't played that good lately. You could also look at Terrence Ross. I know he doesn't get a lot of peripheral stats, but the guy is kind of a walking bucket. And he's going to get minutes. He's going to get his shots up, and he's been getting a couple blocks and steals. Like last game, he had 2 steals, a block. He put up 27 fantasy points on FanDuel, 31 minutes. So I kind of like Terrence Ross at he's 5,400 on FanDuel. So he's not bad. I think he'd be pretty low owned there. You could take a look at James Ennis if you're looking for that cheap guy. If you're looking for value there, 3,800 on FanDuel is really cheap, and 3,700 on DK. So you kind of have to pay attention to those guys there for Orlando because, like you said, they normally want to spread it out and just play 12 or 13 guys, but they don't have enough guys now. So they're going to have to tighten up the rotation, and someone's got to score. And if it ends up being a blowout, someone's still got to play. Terrence Ross could play into the end of the game and just keep scoring, even if they're getting blown out by Philly. On the Philly side, you got to kind of worry a little bit, or, is Embiid even going to play a full game here? Because, with Embiid's history, I don't think they're going to give him a full workload here. Why would you need to with this depleted Orlando team here? But I do like Shake Milton. He's 4,700 starting point guard, obviously with Ben Simmons out. He's going to get a full run here, and he's got a good matchup. I'm obviously not too worried about some of the guys for Orlando there. their guards. So I like Shake Milton at 4,700 on FanDuel, 58 on DK is a little more, but I think he's worth it. Tobias Harris is too cheap on FanDuel, and FanDuel is a little limited for small forward position. So you're going to see a lot of ownership on FanDuel for Tobias Harris at 6,800, and you might have to just eat the chalk there. But he's really expensive on DK at 8,300, so I don't know if he's worth paying up there. So yeah, we got a lot going on there as well with these injuries on both sides, major injuries to their star players, Aaron Gordon and Ben Simmons, and that makes everything. But then you also have blowout potential here as well, and like workload potential. How much are guys even going to play? So that's kind of where we're at. I think we're kind of on an Embiid fade. At least I am. I'm kind of fading Embiid because I don't trust the minutes here.
Yeah, I'm planning to fade Embiid as well, especially on DraftKings. He's 10.5. That's $1,200 more than anyone else on the slate in a blowout potential. Against a slow-paced team that's strong defensively, hasn't done anything special against Orlando. So I just don't see the need to go to Embiid. There's lots of other mid-tier guys here I'd rather combine on my roster. So I'm going to leave Embiid off of it. And I agree with you on the rest of the Philly breakdown. Milton is really cheap on FanDuel, much tougher decision on DraftKings at 5.8, but he's going to have more usage with Simmons out. And then, yeah, that is the question with Harris. 8,300, such a big price jump on DraftKings. So I think you'll get him at lower ownership there than on FanDuel for sure. And, who's going to guard him with Gordon and Isaac out? Much better matchup for Harris than what he would normally see. So, back on the Orlando side, I see what you're saying about Fournier. He's just one of those guys I can't ever seem to get right. I don't trust him. He certainly could go off here with more of an opportunity, but I feel like for the most part I probably won't go there. And I'm not really psyched about any of these value plays at this point, but we will wait and see. We'll see who's starting. There's a chance I might get a little bit exposure to one of them.
I mean, Terrence Ross is $5,000 on DK. Guess how many three-pointers he attempted? No, we don't need to talk about how much he made, but how many three-pointers did he attempt last game?
How about 12?
11. He attempted 11. So he's 3 out of 11, overall 6 for 14 shooting. And that was Aaron Gordon played most of that game. And Aaron Gordon puts up quite a few shots too. So the minutes are going to be there, and he's going to put up a ton of shots. And Terrence Ross can get hot at times. He does have he's had a few ceiling games, like 50-point fantasy games this year, or however way you want to look at it, last year or before the restart. So.
Right.
So I kind of like Terrence Ross, and I don't think he's going to be that highly owned. So that's why I do like him, and I think he's the perfect guy. He's around the $5,000 range, and he's got upside here. And people are not thinking, hey, let's play Terrence Ross, for the Orlando Magic.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, so that's why I like him. So.
Yep. All right, 2 games left here, and the next one should have a lot of points. Again, the line is not up yet, but I think it'll be the highest total on the board. It's the Wizards against the Pelicans. Pelicans on a back-to-back here after that 140-125 shootout loss to Sacramento. We don't have any news yet on this game. Zion played 22 minutes in the last one. We don't know yet if he's going to play again or what exactly they're going to say about his minutes on this one, whether it's 5-minute bursts or we'll play it by ear. We just don't know at this point. It's early in the morning here, but man, frustrating. I played him in the showdown slate. He went 10 for 12 from the field, but he only played those 22 minutes, only got 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Even in that shootout, they just they didn't really let him run. So with that uncertainty there, what are you thinking about this game? Because we have the Wizards are number 6 in pace on the season. Pelicans are number 2. They're both poor to bad defenses. So again, I'm expecting a lot of fantasy potential here. Who are you picking out of this game?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like some of the Washington guys because you can get exposure to this is by far the fastest pace, should be the highest scoring game, and neither team's really that great on defense either. So you got a lot of good variables here, and you can get the Washington guys at value here. So it's just a matter of picking, take a couple of those Washington guys, picking the right ones. So Jerome Robinson is kind of interesting. He's kind of coming out of nowhere, and he's just been firing up shots, and he's got the green light. It's a fast-paced game, and he's been playing good. He's getting minutes. He's putting up a lot of shots, and he's not a guy that a lot of people are thinking about. He's only 4,500 on FanDuel. They have him as a point guard, even though he pretty much plays off guard there. So 4,500 on FanDuel, I think he can hit value there. I think he can hit 6 to 7 times value in this fast-paced matchup. So I do like him, and he is 4,900 on DK, and he's small forward or shooting guard eligible, so you can play him as a guard, or forward on DK as well. So I think he's a good value play actually, even though he's kind of an under the radar guy. And then Troy Brown Jr. has been good too. He's been filling up the stat sheet and just doing a little bit of everything. And he's 5,800 on FanDuel, 5,500 DK. You can take a look at Ish Smith. If Ish Smith is going to start again, New Orleans is not good against point guards. And he's 5,300 on FanDuel, 5,000 on DK. So he's good. And then I know that we talked a little bit before the podcast. We both really like Thomas Bryant. He's priced up now. So because he's so expensive, and some people don't even really want to mess with playing a lot of Wizards here, he might be a little bit lower owned. But yeah, he's been just on a tear. The main thing with him is if he can stay out of foul trouble. So if he can stay out of foul trouble, he's a really good play. He's 7,700 on FanDuel, so pretty expensive there, and 7,200 on DK. But I think he is worth paying up here, especially since we're probably not paying up for Embiid in this slate. And then on the New Orleans side, I'm not looking for a ton of exposure on the New Orleans side, but I do like Brandon Ingram. I think he's a pretty good value on FanDuel at 7,500. He's priced up a little bit on DK at 8,400. And then I think Drew Holiday is due for a big game. He hasn't really done much lately, but he's 7,700. Here's a nice price discrepancy for you here. This is the one I was thinking of earlier. 7,700 Drew Holiday on FanDuel. And I think you know how much he is on DraftKings, 9,300 on DraftKings. So you talk about a price discrepancy there. So, yeah, I think he might be worth paying up for. In this matchup. I think DraftKings is seeing the matchup and seeing the pace and saying Drew Holiday ceiling game here, and FanDuel is like, okay, we're just going to put Drew Holiday at, we might increase his price by $200. Right. Normally he's about 7,500, so big price increase there. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. Pretty concentrated. Yeah, not really interested in Zion. We don't know if he's going to play a back-to-back. He's super explosive in those limited minutes, but he doesn't really play that much. So, New Orleans doesn't really have much to play for. I mean, they're right on the edge. I don't think they're going to be able to get him there into that playoff game there because Portland's on fire right now. So it's kind of Memphis and Portland kind of battling for that. So I don't know how much New Orleans is going to try to risk Zion for a playoff run when they're almost eliminated. They're not technically eliminated, but they're pretty close here. So. So what do you think? You're liking this game a lot as well, aren't you?
I am, and I agree. It's just a matter of picking out the right guys. On the Wizards side, I like the combo of Ish and Bryant. I like the potential correlation there. Reasonable prices. I mean, Bryant's a little bit priced up, but because I don't want to pay for Embiid, his 7.2 looks pretty good next to Embiid's 10.5. And as I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, I really like how Bryant is taking more threes. So he's being really aggressive. Double last time, and he added 2 steals and 4 blocks. So in a fast-paced game like this one, I think he could repeat that type of performance. Troy Brown Jr. certainly a nice potential value play. It's a great point you made about Robinson. With the amount of shots he's getting up off the bench, I think it's wise to consider him. And on the Pelican side, the challenge we always have if Zion plays is just that split usage between the 4 guys: Lonzo, Drew, Ingram, and Zion. But since at this point we think there's a decent chance he's not going to play, I'm really liking Brandon Ingram here as my favorite guy on New Orleans. 8,400. on DraftKings, reasonable price for him. In fact, he may be the guy that I use that is the most expensive player on my roster because I'm not paying for Embiid. There's a good chance I won't pay for Drew Holiday, even though it's a good matchup here, just because of that price discrepancy you mentioned. He's so expensive on DraftKings comparatively. So it may be Ingram here as my highest priced guy. It's kind of a weird slate here for pricing with the studs. So he's my number one choice, and there's a chance I'll just go there and leave it at that. But if you're playing multiple lineups, you may want to build a lineup where you get at least 5 guys from this game. Give it a nice healthy stack, and hope that it's a real shootout, and a close one at that.
Absolutely.
All right, Shane, you ready for the final game of the night?
Yep, absolutely. Let's go.
Nice matchup here. Two excellent teams out of the East, Boston and Toronto, playing at 9 p.m. Eastern. And mybookie.ag has this one as a 3-point favorite for Toronto, over under 218.5. And we don't have any current news here, but we can anticipate that Kemba Walker will be back in the lineup. He sat out the last game, which was the second night of a back-to-back. So it's looking like Boston will have their full crew, and same thing with Toronto. So anyone jumping off the page for you here in this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably a better game for real life, basketball than fantasy basketball. Again, it's going to be a super competitive. Two of the best teams in the East here. Both teams playing pretty good, especially Toronto. They're just red hot right now. They're just locking people down on defense and just they're really efficient on offense. So because of that, probably not going to have a lot of exposure here. I do feel like Jason Tatum is due for a little bit of a bounce back here. He's had a couple, one good game and a couple rough games. The last game he got into foul trouble early. He didn't look very good. He couldn't get into a rhythm. But I think that if he stays out of foul trouble, I do like Jason Tatum. He's pretty cheap on FanDuel at 7,500, and there's only so many power forward options. So I can see him being pretty highly owned there. He's 7,900 on DK. And then Hayward is pretty cheap here. Gordon Hayward is pretty cheap on FanDuel at 5,900. So even though it is a tough matchup, that's pretty cheap, and he can do a little bit of everything as well. He's 7,000 on DK, so you see the discrepancy there. So Gordon Hayward's not bad on FanDuel. I think Tatum is pretty good value at 7,500, and he's definitely a guy that has that 40 to 50 point ceiling, and he's only 7,500. So even this is a tough matchup. It should be a close game as well. Currently, the early projections over under 218.5. Toronto's only a 3-point favorite, so it should be a close game here. Kemba Walker comes back, takes a little bit of usage, but he doesn't play that much either. He plays in the low 20 minutes, probably something like that. So, yeah, so that's what I'm looking at here. And it's really hard to get to too many guys on the Toronto side here, even though they've been on fire. I mean, you can look at Van Vliet, and I'm not really too interested in Lowry. I just think it's a tough matchup for them. Boston's playing good defense, so I'm not interested in paying up for those guys really. Siakam had a bad game last game, so I don't know if I can go back to the well there. So that's kind of where I'm at. Fairly minimal exposure to this game because of the defensive prowess, and the pace of it's not really that great either. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a good chance I'm going to fade this game completely. Just not explosive teams with fast pace. I mean, very, very good teams, but they're both so good defensively. Toronto's ranked second, Boston's ranked fourth on the season. So I'm just not expecting a high scoring game here. And prices are all solid to a little bit expensive on DraftKings, at least. On the Boston side, the guy that I think makes the most potential sense would be Jaylen Brown at 6,900. He's usually not the Celtic that I pick out, but he has averaged 40 fantasy points against Toronto. So you could go there, but I probably won't. On the Toronto side, I agree. Siakam has just been underwhelming here recently, so I don't think I'll pay 8.2 on DraftKings for him. Fred VanVleet has really been the most consistent player here in the bubble. 41, 51, and 45 fantasy points the last three out on DraftKings. He's 7.7 though on DraftKings, so he's more expensive than Shea. He's more expensive than Karis LeVert. Um, so I probably won't go there either. He's also $100 more than Fox. So just probably won't have anybody in my primary build from this game.
Yeah, and Jaylen Brown is affordable on FanDuel as well at $6,000. But if he's facing up with if he's going up against like Siakam or even Anunoby, is pretty good defensive players there. So where I think if Gordon Hayward gets down low, they're a little bit more vulnerable down there for against Toronto is. But they're perimeter guys. They're mid-sized guys, and their perimeter guys are really tough. So I don't really want to mess with them too much. But Jaylen Brown has been really good. He's been really one of the quiet stars here in this restart. He's kind of flying under the radar. FanDuel did price them down appropriately for this difficult matchup for Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown. So those guys will definitely have exposure because they're really good. But it's a little hard to trust them in this matchup. No, they won't have it's hard to have a ceiling game, but there is potential there though. So.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it'll be a fun slate here with a lot of news. We invite you to jump in with us as a member. We've got these 7-day-a-week NBA podcasts in front of the paywall. And then as a member, what we do, as we said at the top, is we give you the full FanDuel lineup every night that there's NBA, which is 7 days a week. It's such an exciting time with that, along with golf and baseball lineups that we're giving out and getting ready for football. So we'd love to have you jump in as a member. Go to dfscoachtalk.com. And please also, if you could, follow us on social media so we could interact with you. Shane is at DET Sports Shane on Twitter. I am at Language Olympic. And you can also find the entire crew at DFS Coach Talk. Our fearless leader, Joe Sarvati, who is known as Coach. You can find him at JoeSarvadi. And our man, Freddie Mills, who helps us with baseball and golf. He is at Freddie Mills 7. And Shane runs our Instagram page, DFS_Coach Talk. We'd love to have you check that out. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give us that thumbs up and subscribe so you know when the podcast posts. We're trying to get these NBA podcasts out basically in the middle of the night so the folks on the West Coast can listen to it before bed. Everybody else can listen to it at breakfast, on their way to work, or at lunch, however it works for you. So that's what we're doing. So we'd appreciate the thumbs up and the like. And our charity of choice here at DFS Coach Talk is mambaon3.org, MAMBAONTHREE.org, set up by the Bryant family. Shane, did I miss anything? Any final thoughts? Any words of wisdom?
No, I think that there's a lot of little sneaky plays in this slate, so I think we can definitely gain an edge. And there's a lot of interesting news that are going to change the slate as the news goes on. And we have until 4 p.m. Today to figure all that out, which is good. So we're going to be putting a lot more prep research and prep into this slate, and I think we have a lot of good information already. So it's just going to keep getting better. So it's a good slate to play. I think that we're going to definitely be all over this. To have some awesome FanDuel lineups and some great DraftKings picks as well. So definitely jump in and join us.
Absolutely. So thank you again to our sponsors, mybookie.ag. Got a great promo code offer on our website, so go check that out. And same thing with TVG, where the world watches and wagers on horse racing. Please join us again tomorrow for another NBA podcast. It's going to be a fun one. Maybe a little surprise there. I won't spoil it for you, but be sure to tune in. So that'll do it for tonight, the Friday slate. On behalf of Sugar Shane Caldwell and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I am Andrew Hansen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to tune in again tomorrow for another DFS Coach Talk NBA podcast as we look to crush it in NBA DFS.